CM Punk WWE heat revealed, Ricky Starks buries AEW and gets punished for it, Eric Bischoff returns to WWE, and more. I'm Luke Owen and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
Get exclusive bonus videos over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk.
Earlier this year, WWE fans were super excited to see Cody Rhodes finish his story and go on to WrestleMania 40 to avenge his WrestleMania 39 loss to Roman Reigns. What he didn't plan for, though, was Black Adam crashing at the box office and The Rock's plans to take over all DC movies with him at the helm falling apart, so he returned to wrestling instead to face Roman Reigns. Look, we all know the story by now. Rock announced on TV that the WrestleMania 40 main event would be him versus Roman for the title, but social media backlash and the We Want Cody movement forced WWE to pivot, turn The Rock heel, and go back to their original Cody-Roman plans, and was all the better for it. And now Roman Reigns himself has opened up about these changes in an interview with Sports Illustrated, giving an analogy that only he could. He said, "It didn't matter to me. I was the main event no matter what. I'm the guy that everyone wanted to dance with. I'm the hot chick. Everyone wanted to take me out." Roman will likely be main eventing again this coming Saturday at Survivor Series, where he takes on Bloodline Wolfpack with his OG Bloodline and a returning CM Punk, who was added to the team by an also returning Paul Heyman on last Friday's SmackDown. According to Sean Ross Sapp on Fightful Select, Punk being in the War Games match was always the plan and not a last-minute decision. And we are now officially 1 year and 1 day since the huge return of CM Punk to wrestling, if you ignore the other two returns to wrestling he did in his 3-year tenure at AEW. Punk returning to WWE was a proper hell has frozen over moment, as Punk had spent the previous 10 years burying WWE at every chance he could get, especially when he was working with All Elite Wrestling. And the reaction from those in the War Games match who reportedly did not know Punk was coming back until he walked out onto that stage has been well documented. Drew McIntyre reportedly walked out of the building, and Seth Rollins was caught on camera by a fan giving Punk the middle finger. Both of these have since been turned into storylines, which was supposed to lead to Seth Rollins versus CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania until Punk's injury, but did lead to one of WWE's best feuds of the year between Punk and McIntyre. But there were other people in that ring, and some of them have now shared their thoughts on Punk's return. On their YouTube channel, WWE released an edition of WWE Playback, which looked at the behind-the-scenes events of Punk's return, with some roster members watching it back. During those watch-alongs, Sami Zayn, sat next to Damian Priest, talked about his unresolved issues he had with Punk, which dates back to their time on the independent scene. He said, "I think there was still some weird underlying stuff with Punk, and Punk is I think it's pretty well documented that he's an interesting character who's had his ups and downs with most people, both in the ring and backstage at various points, if you've known him a long enough time. So I think there was just some unresolved stuff between he and I. And we haven't spoken in how many years at this time, so seeing him back at first was like, okay, well-documented ups and downs. I'm not sure what you could be talking about there, Sami." But it all appears to be water under the bridge now, as Sami adds that he and Punk have cleared the air and talked about any issues they might have had. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select added in a report, "I've not heard a single issue or negative interaction that CM Punk has had since he's been backed. He's not just been a model citizen, he's been quite helpful from my understanding." Which is a stark contrast to his time in AEW, where the negative interactions and not clearing the air is what led to him getting fired from the company. And speaking of stark contrast, there's an AEW star, it's Ricky Starks, who is saying some negative things about All Elite Wrestling, which we will have more on after a word from today's sponsor. Another email sent. Time for a break.
Is this you? Have you had an accident recently after sending an email that wasn't your fault? The accident, that is, not the email. Has your accident affected you personally? Has some uneven floorboards made you trip and feel you deserve some compensation? Well, maybe it's time you get yourself some personal injury legal advice from injury lawyers Morgan & Morgan. You see, Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm, with over 1,000 attorneys operating in all 50 states. They're more than just a traditional law firm. They're a national consumer-facing brand with a promise of being for the people. When you're seriously hurt, your injury could be worth millions, like little baby boy Luke here, who, after this fall, wasn't able to turn left ever again. Morgan & Morgan don't settle for lowball offers. They achieve significant verdicts in the past couple of months for victims involved in life-altering car crashes. If you've ever been seriously injured, your case could be worth millions, and you're only a few clicks away from potentially changing your life. It's so easy. You can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan using the link in the description below. Don't be a little baby loser boy like Luke.
Ow.
Ricky Starks has not wrestled for AEW since March 2024 when he was still tagging with Big Bill and the pair lost in a tag tournament match against Top Flight. It has since been reported that Starks turned down a creative pitch that would have seen his team with Big Bill break up, leading to a feud in the summer between the two that Starks would eventually win. Starks himself has said that he has never turned down any creative pitches from All Elite Wrestling. But the fact of the matter is, he has not been on TV and is reportedly fit and healthy. And he recently made his return to the independent scene at Glory Pro in a losing effort to Cody Lane, and was also at GCW this past weekend, where he cut a promo saying that he was currently frozen out from All Elite Wrestling. The whole thing had a whiff of the Jack Perry about it, who earlier this year returned to wrestling at a New Japan show and tore up his AEW contract, starting his scapegoat character that was born out of the Brawl In incident with CM Punk. Perry was, of course, still working for AEW, and this was an angle to set up his return to the company and joining the Elite. However, according to Fightful Select, Starks' frozen out comments at GCW were not a work. Fightful Select are also now reporting that Starks has been pulled from all future GCW shows. However, it might not all be about Starks' comments. Fightful Select are reporting that AEW instead took issue with GCW's Effie's comments about the company and Tony Khan on a recent podcast. Effie took exception to AEW running the Hammerstein Ballroom in December, which GCW will be running in January. AEW announced that ROH's final battle will take place from the venue. ROH has a long history with the Hammerstein Ballroom, and they'll also be doing tapings of the Christmas editions of Dynamite and Collision. GCW had announced their shows 2 weeks earlier, which is what Effie has taken exception with. He argues in the podcast that there's no exclusivity in wrestling, and the bigger company in AEW coming in could hurt the sales of the smaller independent company, GCW. But what AEW reportedly took exception to wasn't Effie's comments about the Hammerstein Ballroom, but about Shad Khan, Tony's father. Effie made a joke about GCW owner Brett Lauderdale not owning a football team, then added, Brett doesn't have a dad who pays him to stay away, also claiming that AEW runs at a $40 million deficit. Fightful Select report, after that, AEW was not interested in having Ricky Starks work GCW. According to Fightful Select, Starks is free to wrestle for other independent promotions, but he can no longer take bookings from GCW. Brett Lauderdale himself said on the Game Changer Weekly, I found out about this the same time as everybody else did for the most part. I've stated this many times before, and it's no secret. I don't really have a line of communication with AEW. I've never talked to Tony Khan on the phone or via text in my entire life. They don't talk to me. I'm not trying to say that in a negative context, but I guess we've never really had to talk. This report came out the same day that Fightful Select reported that Starks' contract with AEW has been extended and will now expire in the spring or summer of 2025. AEW had the option to extend his contract in the spring of 2024, which they enacted, and Sean Ross Sapp writes, those that we spoke to said that prior to the option being picked up, Starks was hoping to test the open market. He adds, thus far, we've not learned of any plans involving AEW and Ricky Starks. Which means this is a lot like the Ray Phoenix situation, where AEW extended his contract due to his time off from injuries to prevent him and Pentagon Jr. signing with WWE. SRS added on Blue Sky that Effie's comments about AEW is what led to Starks being pulled from GCW, but what didn't help was that he also did an interview with Chris Van Vliet where he opened up about his current frustrations with All Elite Wrestling, calling his current situation a head f***. He said, I'm in my prime and it sucks when you're on such a momentum, riding the wave, doing work and doing stuff, and then to just be at home for so long. You're kind of like, whoa, it kind of throws you off. I'm not meant to be at home. I'm not meant to be a homebody in this current phase in my life. I'm not meant to be just chilling at home and doing not the thing that I've been busting my ass to do for the past 13 years. He also addressed being caught on security camera footage coming out of Cody Rhodes' bus at this year's Royal Rumble, an image that was shared online by fans. Stark said, the next day, Sunday, I woke up and this whole thing was blowing up. And I was like, what is this? I had people from my job. I had one guy who was like, were you at the Rumble last night? And I said, yeah, and what the F about it? He goes, just saying, that's a bad look. How is it a bad look? I can't control somebody taking security footage while I'm walking to a bus. I don't control that. Tell me how that is a bad look. Stark argues that he also attended WrestleMania alongside QT Marshall and Aaron Solo to watch Jade Cargill's match and Cody win the WWE Championship, and that was not an issue. He said there was no issue at all, only because before I went, Tony already said, hey, it's okay. So like, there was no issues. Now, if he actually didn't mean that, okay, I don't know, that's different. But there was no issue about that, and I still, to this day, don't see a problem with it. You should check out the rest of the CVB interview because it's absolutely brilliant. And he also talks about that moment with Adam Copeland, which goes viral every few months. Instead of it, I don't think Ricky Starks came out of it looking very bad. It wasn't me that looked bad in that whole situation. AEW will be heading to Australia in early 2024, but reportedly due to poor ticket sales, it has now been moved from the Suncorp Stadium, which held around 52,000 people, to the smaller Brisbane Entertainment Centre, which holds around 13,000. Someone who will probably be laughing about this a lot on his podcast very soon is Eric Bischoff, who made his return to WWE on last night's NXT via a video message to announce that he'll facilitate a face-to-face between Trick Williams and Ridge Holland. Later on in the show, X-Pac Sean Waltman also announced on Twitter that he'll be on NXT next week. Bischoff hasn't been seen with WWE since he came in as a new executive director of SmackDown in June 2019, but was let go from the position around 4 months later. It was reported that Bischoff had not kept up with the WWE product, and there wasn't a lot of positive things to be said about his pitches. Bischoff himself has said that his short tenure in WWE did not work out due to him. Elsewhere on the show, Gigi Dolan returned to television after returning to an NXT house show last Friday. She helped Tatum Paxley against Fatal Attraction, which contains her former tag partner, Jacy Jayne. Check out yesterday's WrestleTalk news, where Ollie Davis looks at WWE's big problem.